Episode 65. No sponsors for today unless you guys want to make one up.
Yep.
I wish we could do a combined Blue Chew ad because they were my favorite to do, but they didn't buy an episode this month. So, episode 65 with John Dudley and Evan Hafer. Instead of me making things up about you guys, since you're sitting right here, I'd like you both to introduce yourself to the audience and then make things up about yourself.
Oh, yeah,
So let's begin with John Dudley. John, tell us a little bit about yourself before the episode.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Dudley. I'm a reoccurring member of the Cleared Hot episode. I'm also a friend to Andy Stump and also possibly a friend to Evan. He hasn't I haven't heard him talk shit behind my back yet. So I am a guy that likes to eat sweet and salty crickets,
Nice.
scorpion tongues, and every now and then I shoot archery.
Best known for your interpretive dance. And moving on to Evan Hafer. Your turn.
I'm
You're
Evan
gonna have
Hafer.
to do an intro anyway.
I'm from the great state of Idaho, which is much better than Montana.
2% worse, but
It's much greater than the state of Montana. 100% of Idahoans agree with me. So that is the fact. I have a coffee company. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's Brown Rifle Coffee Company.
I've heard of Black Rifle.
That's an offshoot. Yeah, it's like the subsidiary, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I started Black Rifle Coffee a few years ago. My previous profession was one of gun toting for several years.
Like a factotum,
Yeah,
but more of a gun totem.
gun totem. Yeah, that's what I did. And but I started roasting coffee in 2005 with no idea whether or not I was going to transition away from the life that I was currently living, just because I was super interested in it. Those are my hobbies, which was I called it. It was the series of R's. Like I liked roasting coffee, running big rivers. Like those were the things that I liked. Reading, a few of the things that I liked. to do. And
Any other R's?
no, those were
Rating.
just kind of like rating. Yeah, like those. I am a hardcore knitter, so I spend a significant amount of time knitting very complex colors and tapestries with former felons. So I teach it to give back.
And sometimes
to,
you
to
mix
the
in a
felon
pot
community.
holder.
Yeah, well, that's where we start, and that's my way to give back to felons, because I'm super concerned with the felon community and how they transition back into the society.
Can anyone else hear that dog eating that rotten leg?
Just fucking
That's good. And on that note,
demolishing.
episode 65.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Yeah, let's fucking get in there. Yeah.
Where did the communities adopt that Spartan aspect? Like you see the Crusaders, you'll see the shields,
Right.
you'll see the swords. When did that happen?
I was thinking about this yesterday. I think it comes from the movie 300.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I don't
Yeah.
remember seeing any of that when I
No.
first got in, and I don't remember when I did start seeing it. But once I did, it was everywhere. I couldn't look anywhere and not see it.
So when I was in the course at Bragg, one of the instructors assigned, it was part of our reading material, was the Battle of Thermopylae.
Yep.
And
Gates of Fire.
yeah, Gates of Fire, exactly. So, we were familiar with that, and then the movie came out, and then it was like all the guys that couldn't read all of a sudden knew about it. And they're like, "Fuck yeah, fuck yeah, fucking Sparta!"
Link shields.
Yeah, we went on like a
Oh.
20-minute diatribe on our podcast, just talking about Spartans and how fucking gay they were, because they were like ultra gay and they loved butt fucking each other and fucking kids and everything else. They were just fucking homos. And that's nothing when I say that, when like I'm not trying to be derogatory, but it's like you got all these dudes that are like homophobic, legitimately homophobic, that say like super derogatory things about homosexuals, and they're like
With
they got a giant
tattoos, yeah.
like giant tattoo celebrating the previous homosexual activity of a group of dudes that like to kill people and butt fuck each other. Like, is this the type of podcast we can say? Butt
We can
fuck?
say
Okay.
it's the internet,
Okay,
as you
good.
know.
It's the
So
internet.
here, funny story. I met Mark Twight in 2005 and spent a week on the movie set of
Oh shit!
300. So I went up there and I met Zach, the director, and I
Mm-hmm.
watched him. That was my first introduction to anything in the Hollywood sphere. And I
Right.
watched them film a movie that completely takes place outside,
Right.
shot with zero scenes that occurred outside. It was
It's all green screen, right?
It was that, and there was all these huge, intricate stages. So I'm like
Right.
picking up the Spartan shields in that movie. It's like, whoa, this thing is made out of helium, and it's like
Yeah.
paper mache.
Yeah,
I was
foam.
one of the when I was there, they were filming that scene where that huge dude gets carried in, and on the side of the carriage,
Yeah.
there's these massive golden lions.
right.
Well, when I was there was this massive piece of styrofoam. And I would come in the morning, and it would just take a little bit more shape because the guy's just on it every day, just
Right.
like. And by the end, it looked like a lion. And then in the movie, it's like this golden masterpiece. I'm like, that's a piece of styrofoam right there. But all of these scenes, I watched them film it. It was crazy. They would move cameras around for 30 minutes, action for 5 seconds. All right, cool. Move the cameras for another 30 to 45 minutes, action for 5 seconds. And they just kept spinning the cameras around, like the wall with
Right.
the buried bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
When they're piling it up, that was, an 8-foot section, and they would just
Right.
shoot from different angles to make it look like.
It's big.
And that scene where they come up and they're peering over the top, I was standing
Yeah.
in the room, and the backdrop, I mean, I don't want to say it was the worst watercolor painting I've ever seen,
Right.
but it could have definitely been up there. And I remember thinking in my head, I'm like, there's no way this will look real. And then I saw that scene in the movie, I'm like, God damn.
God damn. Pulled it
Unbelievable.
off.
But it's crazy because those guys were working out hard, and they still would paint abs on them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
are you guys? What's going on here? They didn't have any capes on,
Right.
no points on any of the spears. All that stuff was all added in
That's fucking
CGI later on. They were just
crazy.
blunt. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Wow,
is crazy,
That's
man.
amazing that they can do all that.
Well,
Yeah,
when I remember watching that, I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, it's an entertaining movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a movie.
It didn't change my life. I wasn't like, going to the tattoo artist the next day and, painting a fucking Spartan on my back. I didn't do that. It wasn't life changing.
yeah.
You know.
It engulfed most of the
engulfed,
communities
yeah.
very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I think it just took on a life of its own, where this like helmet is just such a symbol of resistance. And the shit that like really freaks me out is like this interwoven wrong historical reference of like the Spartan helmet, and then like the 3%, and then like 1773 or something. You'll have like 3 layers of shit where you're like, none of those things make sense. Like they're not historically accurate whatsoever. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like you're a 3% Spartan revolutionary. I don't even understand. I don't think you understand history. None of those things can be
Yeah,
correlating.
but dude,
or
look at
anything.
my tab.
But look at this. Stack them high. What'd you do? I was an armor's assistant.
I have heard
Stack
people.
'em high.
I have heard it, and I won't say where. Rolling out to helicopters, and I heard a guy say, "Come back on, with your shield or on it." I'm like,
Oh man.
I don't have a shield.
Like
I didn't. Did you get issued a shield? Because like, damn it, I left mine somewhere.
I would not want to carry one. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't. And, more than likely I would have come back with my plates. I would have, yeah. I mean, they typically transport you with those, but
Yeah, they're strapped to your body.
I've heard a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Or the Valhalla stuff is the other one too, where I'm like, I'm not like, if you guys know history and the history of the Vikings and like the their Norse gods and all these other things, like you would also know that they like banging each other. Like that's the whole thing. It's like, man, you guys are like, for homophobes, you guys are celebrating a group of ultra violent homosexuals all the time, like the Spartans.
They never read the reference
Vikings.
material.
I don't think they did. I think they're just like, dude, I saw Vikings on History Channel. Those dudes are bad motherfuckers. And
Yep.
it's like, but they're actors, and they
Yep.
were. Don't get me wrong, they were fucking bad motherfuckers. But you can't have Valhalla 3% Spartan helmet all in one sticker either. You can do whatever you want. It's a free country, but none of that stuff makes sense to me. I don't get it.
Not when you've read the source documents. You're like,
yeah,
interesting.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mark Twight, was he a cool dude? I mean,
so I did the longest podcast I've ever done was with him, and it was 3 and change. We could have gone for 6 hours.
Wow.
He's just an incredibly intense, dedicated person. It's what I love about him the most. Like, most of his pictures are black and white.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's black and white, but he's black and white. Like, he's in or he's out. And you would dig him for sure.
So I met him. So small world. So I belonged to the Mountaineers when I lived in Seattle, which was this, like, it's exactly what it is. A group of mountaineers that go out and climb. And he did a book signing for Kiss or Kill. Confessions of a
Extreme Alpinist. Yeah.
Dude, so that was 1997, I think, something like that. I think it was like 97 when that was released. Maybe a little bit earlier, later. I don't know, right around there. So I met him at his book signing there. He came out to the Mountaineers. And I was like, read his book. I fucking loved it. And I think he went into the fact in that book that he got into competitive shooting too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was like, this dude's cool as shit. Like, his book was great.
And by into competitive shooting, he was competitive.
Right.
Because again, he's in or he's out. He went on a bounce dive.
Right.
Into like 1911s, like the whole nine.
Yeah.
That's why he, like, the Bragg boys with their pistol ranges and stuff. He's like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
So he got in deep with those guys as well too.
Yeah, okay, so that makes a lot more sense. Because I was like, because a ton of my buddies would go out and work out with him at Jim Jones when it was still, I don't think he's part of that anymore, right?
Yeah, and I don't know the details enough to speak at an educated level about it, but I know he's detached from it now.
Okay, yeah. But I knew a ton of guys who'd cruise out there and work out with him.
Well, when I met him in Salt Lake and did the podcast with him, it was maybe 3 miles from your HQ out there.
Yeah, I knew a ton of guys who'd go out there. I never got a chance to meet him in, like, past, like, 97 at the book signing. And I was like, the dude's cool. His book was great.
Well, he's a mad scientist. So he crafted, like, going back to 300, he trained all of those guys were legitimately yoked out. And he went in, like, each individual person. It was crazy. Because this lady would just show up and she's like, here's your shake, you need to drink this. I'm like, I'm not actually an actor, but thank you very much. Obviously, I am not in the shape that these gentlemen are in. But every actor was on, like, a nutrition protocol specifically designed by him, and he was working with the food services and craft service. They would come find them, eat this now. Like,
wow.
He tuned. I mean, it's
individualized for every single one.
And not even the people who had the speaking roles too, because everybody there, they needed to look the same way. And he has this just dossier of pictures of day one, getting these actors and then just the transformation. Because he worked with them, I think, for 4 months before they even started shooting.
Holy shit!
And it was, I'm sure we've all been in that phase where you're working out hard and your diet. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
And so then they would do all that. Then they had to go do their fight training, and he was working with the fight training guys and. It was crazy. I mean, he's just a complete mad scientist. His level of understanding and knowledge paired with the mountaineering stuff, I mean, he's like the last man standing in his year group or career of the stuff that he was doing, the crazy climbs that he was doing. Yeah. He's basically the last guy left.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about that on the podcast, like the risk and just the...
Yeah. So does he still climb?
I think he still climbs, but, I mean, I don't think at that level.
Right. Well, and the interesting thing with that was the whole developmental piece where he went into it in the book where he was talking about working out and then also a series of repetition, become proficient at, like, the professional level, because that's really from what I could gather from the book, and I'm thinking about it's 20 years ago, right? But I loved that aspect because he was talking about, I want to be the 1% of the 1% at this task. So I'm already this, extreme alpinist that's climbing routes harder than 99.9% of anybody else can do.
Yep.
So now I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to be a competitive shooter and fucking be in the 99.9% category over here too.
Create a gym. Oh, and I'm going to hop on a bike and crush people on a road bike. And he's nuts.
Yeah, he's a fucking crazy person. But
that's why I love him.
Good crazy. Yeah, like an awesome crazy.
Yeah. Like,
it's cool that it was a he was kind of, well, maybe he pioneered the curve, but he was ahead of the curve from the aspect of like wanting to be the 1% of the 1%, because that's something that's really trending right now.
Oh, he was doing that long before there was a soapbox to get on and talk about how you're.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, you're good. Well, I'm good inside of people who are good.
Well, that's it. It's like the guys that want to be that guy, and then there are guys that are like, no, I am that guy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, holy fuck, because you meet guys like that, like Dudley, right? I mean, it's like that dude, and I think you're probably one of them too. Where
Definitely
you're like,
not. I just try to hang out with people who
Yeah.
are.
yeah.
Like, if I stand next to you, people will think I'm good, so stay right there.
Well, and he has so much because he's 10 feet tall, so some of that greatness might just like slough off the shoulders of the mountain onto the shores of inadequacy onto me. So I'm like, this is fucking badass.
It's getting deep in here.
Yeah, when I got hurt overseas, it was Mark. I went through one of his programs. That's what I used as rehab. That's how I found CrossFit, through Mark.
Because he was part of it early on, right?
Jim Jones was a CrossFit affiliate gym. It was one of the earlier ones.
Got
so
it.
I somehow connected the dots, and he came out and put a seminar on it, the command, and like 7 of us went through it. And it was, I'm like, yeah, so Monday, chest and tries, right? Tuesday, back and buys, and then you just repeat that for years. And he's like, no. like deadlifting? No, I don't do that, mostly because I don't know what it is.
Right.
Squats? No, I don't need to do any of that. And it was unbelievable. I mean, he changed the way I work out now is still the methodology is still the exact same way. And it all flipped on a dime for me, sitting in a small conference room, listening to him. But you want to talk? I'm like, I've just watched him walk over uneven terrain before. Or you should hit Barklow up and ask him about, because Barklow, our mutual friend, what is he? Had a big game category, SICTEP?
Yep.
He ran the cold weather training facility for all the teams as part of the SQT pipeline.
Right.
And Mark would come up there, and I mean, not only can the guy rock climb, let's just go skiing. You know what I mean? We'll go cross country skiing and touring and looking at terrain from, if you need to get from A to B on an infill, this is the route you need to do it because this is avalanche prone terrain. So he'd go out there and do that stuff. You watch those guys just move over uneven terrain, and the way they make decisions on packing a backpack. It's like in the movie Platoon, it's like, I think I'm humping too much kit. Just dumping my backpack up. Like, you don't carry 2 tents with you? Oh, yeah, cool. I don't either. Throwing it over my shoulder.
What are you doing? I'm just digging a hole in the snow over here. It's not a big deal. Just leave me alone.
Yeah,
don't worry about that.
Yeah, it's so cool to have. And then we didn't talk for 10 years. Like, text every once in a while. We linked up in Salt Lake, and it was awesome, man. Had just a phenomenal conversation with a headset on. It was sweet.
He was definitely one of those guys that, because I was 19 or 20, I can't remember what year it was like, it's definitely a big influence. I mean, when Jim Jones came out, I was trying to do the original workouts that he was putting out. I remember I was in Basra, and I was like, dude, 75 miles. And so I'm like riding 75 miles on a fucking stationary bike in 138 degrees in like a tin shed. Like, fuck, man, this is going to take me like 6 hours.
Yeah. I don't like this.
Then you'd get off, and I'm like, I can't use my legs anymore. And then I'd be getting into a car going, God, I hope we don't get into a gunfight tonight because I can't actually move. So I'm just going to die in this car. Legs. I'm hoping I just maybe I could just open the door and shoot from the door. And I don't, hopefully it keeps moving.
The first workout I tried of his was called Jonesworthy. And in hindsight, it's nothing spectacular. It's squats, pull-ups, and kettlebell swings.
Right.
But I had never done a squat. I'm just talking unladen air squat. That I had never thought about doing a squat in my training before that. Because if you're going to work your legs, you need to sit down in this contraption and push the weight up at a 45-degree angle. Because that happens all the time in real life.
Yeah.
And I did that workout, and I fell down the stairs at my house the next morning. Nice. I was like having to belay myself down to the toilet because I would reach this point where my hamstrings are like, we're done here. And I thought I was going to smash the top. One of the sorest times I've ever been, and it's like 80, 64, like not crazy numbers if you've ever done a squat. And of course I was doing it with a friend. Neither of us had done a squat, so we were obviously trying to see who could finish first. I couldn't walk for a week, and that's like, I've never been this sore working out ever. There's something to this, and I never look back.
Every so often I'll do a workout where I just blast my calves, and it's been just ages since I've really hit them hard, and then you get that thing where like you cannot do stairs.
Yeah.
And my office is downstairs, and I hate those days because I can make do like kitchen, bedroom, toilet, upper floor.
Right.
But then I just kind of like look down the stairs like it's just this faint light down there, like, and I'm like, there's a demon down there. I know I need to go.
Down there.
Have you ever had that where you feel like you're one of those what's that freaking if you ever watched Pick a Destiny, Tenacious D?
Oh yeah. Yep.
What was that? The Beelzebub?
Yeah.
You know, where they
Yeah,
that freaking hooved devil.
He's got nothing. Yeah, he's got no calves.
Like that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm up on some hooves. Yeah, it's good though. I really like the guys that you have to dig. You almost have to pry it out of them to know, like, how good they really are at everything.
Right.
And then when you really find someone that's exceptional like that, it's pretty common that you can realize that they're exceptional in so many other realms around them. They'll just be like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. And then next thing you know, they're just awesome at it. And it's because I think it always comes down to work ethic. Shit, it doesn't matter if it's getting your first job or, working on a craft. I always think it's like work ethic and then just like your mental attitude to what how you put in. I remember when I first started working at a bow company, there was this one guy that in the lunchroom, he'd always just kind of complain. I think he picked parts for the bow builders, and the way our factory was laid out on the far end of the building was kind of our conference room, and then on the other side of the building was production. But since we started so small and grew, my office was over by production. But I would have to walk to the far other end of the building every time for meetings. So I remember hearing this guy for months, like he was just kind of always negative and just never going anywhere around here, kind of this thing. Well, I'll remember I freaking walked out of my office one time and I was going to the far other end of the building for a meeting, and I walked, and I'm like walking at a pace where I passed this guy, but I just didn't even think about it. And he's like got a work order to go get a cam for a bow builder that's like waiting for the cam. And I went all the way to the conference room and realized I forgot my damn pen. So I freaking went back to my office and came back by. And I remember I looked over at him. I'm like, you realize I've passed you twice, right?
These are things he says to me while bow hunting. I just want to point out that his stride is 2.5 of mine.
Normal people.
Yeah, and following a giraffe in the backcountry.
Yeah.
I just like stuff like that just blows me away when people really look to, especially now, they look to social media for motivation every day. They just need it. They need it. And it's like, man, work ethic, put your head into something, commit to it, and like spring in your step. Like put a frickin', these are super simple terms. I heard from my grandfather, however long, put a little spring in your steps. Like that, dude, that's all it takes. Like
it ties into what we were talking about at dinner.
Don't slumber around. The amount of people I see right now, I'll walk into Walmart, and I've had days where I just look around me to see how many people will actually pick their feet up. Like, have you ever noticed how many people now just drag their feet? Like, I think if you put a piece of toast on the ground, they would trip.
Right.
Because it's like, I can move my shoe. Okay, now one more.
I only use slippers because they're easier to put on.
Well, it ties into what we were talking about last night about, public speaking and the people that are out there from the spec ops background. They're not teaching people to put a satellite into geosynchronous orbit. It's very simple concepts like you're talking about. And in my opinion, people who choose to serve in the military, they will leave with at least an understanding of what those principles are, can springboard them. Whether or not they do something with it is a completely different story. Mm-hmm. And either they don't or they can't, in my opinion, when I see people can't get out of their own way because they want to throw a card or a flag at you first,
Right.
you know, and pair with that. If they can get rid of all that BS and apply those principles, you're going to crush like 99.9% of people.
Yeah.
And it's not rocket surgery.
It's super, super basic. Like, and I think that's, for me, any craft, you know, what are the 5 or 6 details, and then do them. I'll never forget when I first started playing football, we had, I had a really good coach. I went and worked with Greg Landry. He's a coach that, you know, kind of from the NFL days and everything. And I remember he sat down one time and he goes, you realize every play is designed to score.
Right.
Like every play, if every guy does his job perfectly, like every play is designed to score. But if one decision isn't right, then it's not going to work. And then it's like, okay, duh, yeah.
Right.
You know, if every guy just does that one thing, and kind of his reason, he was a quarterback coach, so his reason for telling me was, he told me, he's like, your job is to know what every single guy's role is for every play. Like, if you are leading correctly, you will make sure every one of your guys does the one thing that it needs to do for us to score every play. And it was like, oh, okay, yeah. So it's just structure. Once again, structure. And then from a shooting aspect, I apply the same thing. I always just go back to, I focus so intently on the basics and just like trying to make them so razor sharp,
Right.
that I have only a few edges, but they're so sharp that if you use them, they work. And then for cooking, I do the same thing. I mean, everyone wants me to do a cookbook, and I tell them, I'm like, you're gonna be this. It's not
5 pages.
It's 5. It's like 5 pages. I just stick to the basics of what was told me, and I just continue to try to refine them. I don't try to like reinvent the cooking of meat. I just try to do it exactly how I was told by someone that does it right, and then just do my best to keep getting better at it, you know, and I don't try to sway outside of that. And I think if people apply that in all kinds of aspects, it's going to work.
Yeah, I used to talk about that a lot, where as an instructor, you know, guys would be looking to, you know, guys from, you know, SEAL Team 6 or Delta or wherever, they think that they have like a magic wand and a fucking cape, where they're going to be like, I'm going to give you some knowledge that's going to totally alter the course of your shooting, you know, or your CQB methodology or whatever it is. And it's like, man, actually, there is no magic wand. I'm like, a double play is a double play is a double play. The only difference between a double play in the major leagues and one in, you know,
Pony
T-ball
league,
is time and accuracy. That's it, right? But you're still turning the same fucking play.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, but what is it? The professionals. What's that saying? It's professionals train until they
Can't get it wrong.
Amateurs train until they get it
Right.
Something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would continue to, because teaching like, you know, hundreds of guys through the last several years. It's like, man, I can't give you a magic wand, dude. It's like, take buckets of fucking ammo out to the range
and keep
set up
doing
a
these
fucking
3
tarp,
things.
You know, stand up a camera with a tripod. I'm like, if you're really serious about this shit, like, get serious about it, but don't expect to go out like once every month and then go buy your entry point to some, you know, a course that's going to last 3 days and then not shoot again, but once a month or whatever it is. Like, that's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to up your game. Too, if you don't have the desire to do something like that, like to put in the time, you're going to be fucking miserable. Like, if you don't want to go out and shoot, you know, 1,000 rounds until you can get a sub-second draw from, you know, the concealed at a 5-inch fucking pie plate 7 yards away, dude, if you don't want to do that, this is going to be a miserable circumstance for you. So don't force yourself into something that you're going to hate.
Yeah.
But don't complain about it when you suck either. Like, if you suck, you suck. Like, that's good. There's plenty of
realistic
people that quit.
expectations, I think, would help a lot of people as well too.
Right.
You miss teaching shooting?
I do. Yeah. I actually miss teaching CQB more than I miss teaching shooting. Like, I loved I love teaching CQB. I love teaching because it's so complex.
Yeah.
And I developed a whole one man and a 2-man CQB protocol from the ground up. You know, not when I say from the ground up, like I took a bunch of different things from different areas, put them together, and then I created a tactical lab where we'd run scenario after scenario after scenario, and we'd put guys through the grinder, and then I would ultimately build spreadsheets, and then I would come up with statistical probability sheets.
Oh God.
So it's fucking so much fun to me. Like I spent 2 years of my life building this, where I could build really complex angles and open up different doors and then create, you know, because USASOC came out with this study, I think it was 07, where guys were getting shot and where they were getting shot from. They weren't getting shot from the rooms that they were in. They were getting shot from the room to room, so adjacent spaces where they're getting shot. And, I mean, obviously you know this more than you know most people. So
they were probably still moving dynamically internally as well.
Yeah, so there was a ton of dynamic entry, you know, and for us, we were operating in really small teams, so it was only 1 or 2 guys, and there weren't a lot of people out there that had a one-man entry SOP. Like, nobody was doing it except for law enforcement. And then if we were coming from our community, they're like, you need 2 to go. It's like, but I don't have 2. So
I have 6 people in 13 rooms. We just called it LA style. I heard over the radio a few times. They're like, LA style. I'm like, oh shit, it's real.
Yeah.
It means one-man entries are authorized.
Yeah. So
but in my community, it was 2. Yeah. You would hold on a door, waiting for the squeeze, and it's CQB is such an, I don't even know what they call it now, CQC or whatever, but the angles are so interesting because you start super simple. You're going to go in probably a center fed room, and it's going to be a square, and you're just going to teach. You hold at the door. You're going to open the door. You will go in and it's super choreographed. And then you add to that, and you'll get people proficient at that one room. And then you move a target around, and like their world comes unhinged because it's. And then you add a hallway, but the door's closed. Then they're fine. But you open that door, and the world becomes unhinged. It takes this. It's like Tetris. You have to build this experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And understand it, because just opening, like he's saying, opening or closing one door. Yeah, you go into a room, and the way that we were taught to do it, unless there's somebody in a location that it's disadvantageous for you coming through the door, and there's, I don't think anybody's doing it, but I don't really feel like discussing the tactic and nuance level. There's a couple places where, as you come through the door, if there's somebody in a location, you're screwed, because you cannot essentially come up on your gun. But you take possession of that room really fast. And, it was like there'd be a window that it would come through, or a hallway that it would come through where people were getting hit, as opposed to being in the room itself.
And that's like teaching that course and then working in that circumstance, because that was the most interesting thing that I had done in my career. And then when I say interesting, there's tons of different aspects to missions and things like that, but being able to develop something from ground up and take years and just grind on it, and then I'd rotate over and then implement it. And so
watch the efficacy of it.
Yeah. So just being able to have your own tactical lab with, you know, the government funding it, and then a bunch of guys that came from our community that were running it, and they're all coming from different services too,
which means they teach their schoolhouse differently.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of cross-pollination when it comes to, like, because these are our secret ways that we do it.
This is our ninja swipe, you know. It's like, so I do miss that a lot. You know, the shooting aspect of things doesn't excite me, but like putting dudes in highly complex problem-solving scenarios with fucking simunitions and explosives and anything and everything. Because even live, you know, going live fire, not that interesting because they can't shoot back. But if you can put role players in scenarios and then add complexity and then layers of complexity onto that, and then watch how people behave in those scenarios, and then it's a lesson in psychology where you're just like, this is fucking so cool.
You would absolutely nerd out over this stuff, Dud.
Dude,
I'm trying not to just really smile.
You should. He grabs his rifle the other day, and we're just like messing around. He takes first shot ever on. You probably shot a 300 Win Mag before, right?
No.
Really?
All right.
No.
Ever?
So he gets behind this awesome Falcor Defense Petra, and I had just brought it out. I had to open 100, and we went out, and he's like a 300, a 500, and a 7. We're just looking at the math, and I was just reconfirming the ballistics on it.
Right.
So I get it dialed for 7, take a shot. Ting. Like, here you go, Dudley. Never been behind the gun. He just gets up there. Ting.
I'm like, I want to do this.
Opening shot 7:30, and it was in about 45 miles an hour wind. I'm like, yeah, just aim on the left edge, because it was like,
Right.
it wasn't full value. I'm like, yeah, just hold on the left edge of the silhouette. And
Yeah, because it was a silhouette. It wasn't like massive.
Right.
It was.
and
Just,
he shoots and he hears and he turns around. He's like,
Yeah.
I like this.
It's the instant feedback. That sound is so fucking amazing.
I know.
As you're talking about the lab, I'm just picturing Dudley coming through a house. Just that's where, like, I'm kind of like, some of the archery stuff you talk about, I'm like, God damn, I wish I could do that. But I can tell on your face, you're like, oh, I think I would have liked that job.
Yeah, that would have been.
Well, because you get to pull in all these different aspects, right? And that was like the coolest part, because it wasn't just your rifle shooting and the proficiency with a rifle and your pistol. Like, you could be the greatest rifle pistol shooter in the world, if you can't solve a complex tactical problem with moving angles, because you're putting feet on that angle, and then the angles are always changing, and then you can change the rooms and the windows and everything else, and add role players and psychology and explosives and everything else into this. It's the most interesting thing, not only to do but watch. So you'd be I would continue to go through all the time, and then build and rebuild the shoot house to put in different scenarios where you're like, oh, I saw something. I'm going to see if we can fuck these dudes up on this one.
You see a hiccup, and instead of avoiding the hiccup, you dive into it.
When you see these guys that can solve problems, and it's a really interesting thing to watch hyper proficient guys in CQB. And 90% of the time when I found those dudes are really fucking good at CQB, like they're on another level, they're guys like Tyler Gray. Their ADHD is like whooping their ass on a daily basis, because they have about 1,000 fucking ideas, and they're thinking 10 miles ahead of everybody else, and their mouth is running, and you're like, but you put them in a fucking house that's moving at 1,000 miles an hour with fucking 1,000 things coming at them, and it's like a fucking ballet to watch somebody do it, and it's like fractions of a % of people that can do that. It's incredible.
When you were saying that, the reason I had a smile on my face, because I was actually thinking all the way to what you're saying now. Mm-hmm. My curiosity was, okay, for me, this is a boiling pot, and so you're like that scenario, at least in like a competitive world, because archery's a super finesse sport. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of times where I go practice, like when I practice a lot, just random places. If I was traveling through town and I might pop in here, like there'd be a guy at a local club that I would sit there and be like, this guy can just pound tacks, and he can pound tacks, and he can pound tacks. But then all of a sudden it's like you kind of throw one little pea in the water, and
right.
You're just like, hey, you want to go head to head for one? And then all of a sudden it's just like, like the freaking,
the wheel on the cart.
Yeah, it's
starts
like,
it's like Jordan's truck in Alberta.
Yeah. So I was wondering, in those scenarios, obviously, you're separating layers. So then you find some of the guys that are good like that. And for me, I don't know why, but the more like pressure or hyper focused I get, it seems like the more I can reduce my heart rate down,
right,
to where it's like I don't know why, it just does it. It's like the more I hyper focus, I can slow things down. I don't know why, but it just does. So you're probably going to have those guys, and maybe that's who you're talking about. But then you have the other guy, the polar opposite of that. So what if those people are already on the team, but you get in, I mean, how much of that is it just up to the leader to recognize the fact, like, this guy is not going to be able to be the best in this scenario, or can you filter them out after they've, like, if it's like, hey, this is a team, dude, but you know what, we've learned that, this freaking cracker box. Now, it's a freaking fire ant nest. We figured out how to make it like this, and this guy is derailing. Like, we've tried to navigate, but in the end, like, he derails in the most extreme element that we're trying, that you've created. How do you... Have you always been able to coach people out of that?
Is your phone on airplane mode?
Someone's giving feedback.
Yeah. I would say it's a bell curve. So you're in the community. I mean, I can only speak from mine, and Evan can speak to his. So in the SEAL teams, there's standards, and there's going to be a bell curve. There'll be people who, like, the standard is a joke. They could wake up and they could hold and exceed the standard without doing any training. Mm-hmm. And some of it's tied to experience and time in the saddle. And then there are people who struggle to hit a dot on paper. And then if you put them from a one-way range to a simulated situation, a two-way range, like with sim rounds, they come apart and they fail. If it's terrible in the conventional teams, yes, you can get rid of them. But where it really will limit you in the community that I came from is if you want to go places that have an additional level of screening, you're screwed. Yeah. You have to meet a heightened standard. And the standards of those places are ones that are challenging to those that are at the top of the bell curve. I think 30 to 40%. In my background, if you want to go to those additional places, 30 to 40% again are going to fail out. And they're trying to get the people who are at the apex of the bell curve to begin with. Yeah. So in a conventional team, though, there's vast levels, and it's on the leadership. I mean, I would say mentorship is probably the number one leadership tool we used. Right. Yeah. Side by side, like, hey, I mean, I mean, if you've ever been on a team, you know where people's strengths and weaknesses are, and maybe Bob would be better over here and Frank should go over there. And we'd kick a guy out, probably one guy out per workup at a conventional team for not being able to hold this standard. But other than that, that's your team.
Could you always coach through it?
No. I mean, I remember even before the invasion of Iraq, we had a guy, and just like, hey, man, you passed the course. Physically, mentally, everything was there to meet that standard.
Which is the minimum.
The minimum. And then we started our train up to go into Iraq, and we realized there was a guy on the team that was just great dude. Like, awesome guy. Like, fucking heart the size of Texas. But he would walk into a room, and it would take him 5 times longer to process the information that the next slowest guy would be able to process. So he was ultimately a hindrance to being able to even do what we needed to do. He found another role on what was called the B team, which not like there's no A or B. It's just they were more support function oriented. And great dude, but at the end of the day, you're going to become a liability in these circumstances, and I'm really glad that happened, because, man, if you
he's
can't
dead
see
in real life,
and if you can't see angles like that, and it's a really hard thing to get people into and to actually open them up to understand. I can't put my back to this window, especially if I don't have Overwatch on this specific side of the building, and if I'm hitting targets on multiple, like going target to target to target, or if I'm going from building to building, like sometimes you're not going to have that support element. You're not going to have that Overwatch. That dude can't cover down angles, and if he can't think fast enough, fuck, man, this is going to be a big issue. And
I almost always found that it wasn't that individual that would have a catastrophic effect from it. It would be the other people. Yeah. Because he would be responsible for a window or a sector, and it's not getting covered, so other people moving along, assuming that it is getting covered, would, and then...
Yeah. And then where I came from, we screened for that specifically. So then we were using, what I tried to really incorporate was the screening process was CQB, and CQB was the complex problem that you had to solve, because we wanted to see how fast you could think, and then how fast you could solve the problem on a really abstract level. And then it mind fucks dudes, because they're like, man, I've been selected multiple times. Yeah. And you go in and you're like, yeah, but you're not good at this, and you might be good at CQB with a lot of team members, but you're not very good at this by yourself. Yeah. And by yourself is a completely different scenario too, because it is a fucking shit show by yourself. Like it is super complex. And not everybody's cut out for it. And then that's the conversations you have to have where you're like, dude, this is going to take you so long to become proficient, even with the training that if we were to train you on a regular basis every day, it might take you a year to even get up to a 70% level, where some of these guys just stepping in off the block, genetically, they got it. And they just, but it was.
Yeah, I was curious from a coaching point of view, just because I think that happens in a lot of different worlds where some people have just the biggest heart and they'll just grind harder than anybody, but it's like, man, I want to like give you just a little drop that would, I don't know how you need like fertilizer or something, man.
Right,
You're a seed, like your roots down, but there's no leaves coming out. And I mean, I keep watering and watering and watering, but like, for whatever reason, it's not clicking. And
that's why they start selection usually with that CQB phase, or they did for us at least, was a month, and it started 2 people, 4 instructors in the catwalk. You want to talk about a little pressure?
Yeah.
And then it's always, and it was a 1-to-1 ratio. So if we moved to 4 or to 6 or to 8, you had a cadre member dedicated to watching just you, and you identify those people early, and the class just started getting smaller, because it does in my mind at least shows your propensity for picking up the other skills later on.
Right.
So they're talking that critical thinking node, and then they layer on the other stuff. Like we did a month of that, and then we went and jumped. I was like, oh, thank God.
Thank God that's over. Yeah.
Whew,
it's so fucking stressful. I mean, fighting in a house doing CQB while somebody else is watching on a catwalk and videos running. Like, you can't hide from anything, right? Yeah. So you see yourself for who you really are tactically, because there's like the pains of reality, right? It's like the way that you see yourself, the way that other people see you, and then like who you really are. Well, when you're on video and you're a fucking a flaming dumpster, like
when you're frozen, like
yeah, like you can actually you can see the thoughts like occurring, like that's how slow it is. And I'm that guy, like
buffering,
yeah, buffering, yeah.
It's Apple scroll wheel just.
Like, I remember my world, my tactical world was just demolished at one point, because I'd like been to Iraq and I'd done all these like cool stuff, and I came back and I went through this scenario with a bunch of cameras, and they recorded it, and I was drawing and shooting, and I was shooting a couple different guys in this scenario, and then I would reholster, and then I would fucking come over and I would shoot. Oh my God. And I'm mortified. I'm like watching this on video, and I'm just like, my entire tactical life is just like burning to the ground. I'm like, this is so fucked up.
I am ashamed.
I am so ashamed. But I was like, it was like the best thing, because it was just this, open up your mouth. Here comes the humility, fucking son. Like, here you go. Here's a big dose of humility. And I remember I just went to work. I was like, okay, man, like, this is super fucked up. You've got to fix this. And I would go off in my own time and find other training places. And that's how I found this like CQB training facility down in Arkansas. And I would leave my job where I was doing CQB and then go out there and do more, and then continue to fucking do over and over and over, more and more reps, to the point where I was like, I'm not going to be a bag of shit. I don't, and not even that. It's just your profession and your life depended on it. I'm like, reholstering? Like, I didn't even know I was reholstering. It's so fucked up, because in your mind, you're like, oh man, this is badass. I looked super cool. And then you're like, oh God, no, this is horrible.
I look back and I'm like, could it have gotten worse? I remember my first run on the house in selection, 2-man entries with pistols, like rolling up to the door with my SIG 226. I'm just ready to go. And I went in, and all I remember is I shot every target in the room.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and I came back, and you had to do a certain sweep, and God help you if you went, like, you could only go a foot off of the barrel if you went 11 inches, safety violation on the spot, trigger discipline, all that stuff. But I remember just going, just like, and then looking at the target, and thank God they were all shoot targets, because I would have been ejected that day. I'm just like, could I have been less tactically aware. I just remember running into that room like, ah.
Well, I my first raid, like the first real house we ever hit. So I mean, it's so funny. So breach goes off, we go in, and I'm on the roof by myself because which is so fucked up. Like I left. I was number one. I left everybody behind me. I'm like, I'm just trying to find somebody to shoot, And then I'm on the roof by myself, and I'm like trying to kick this door, and I'm yelling at these dudes on the other side. I'm like, I'm gonna shoot you in the fucking face. Well, they speak Arabic. They don't know, right? I get the door open. I got these dudes down, and they had a couple rifles that they had laid down, and I looked down, and I had been riding my mag release on my index finger when the breech went off, and I'd flinched, and I dumped my fucking mag. My mag was laying at the entry point, and I'm like,
You'd have been one and done, son.
yeah, bang, fuck,
Yeah.
oh man,
Tap.
yeah,
Ooh.
oh, yeah, I'm gonna shoot you in the face with my one bullet. Like, I'm so cool,
Oh man.
And
Were you ODA at that time?
Yeah.
What was your pipeline in, or military-wise?
I was an infantry guy, and then I went to selection.
Did you
literally.
join with the desire to go that route? You knew you had an end state in mind.
Kind of. I'd met this retired lieutenant colonel. He lived like a few houses down, and his daughter was I was dating his daughter. And I told this story to Jocko. I came into the house one day, and I was reading a book by a SEAL. It's called like Good to Go or something like that from Vietnam. And I had it in my back pocket, and this old crusty dude, kind of crazy. He's like, "What book you got back there?" And I was like, "It's a book on Navy SEALs. These guys are badass, man. I want to be this Navy SEAL." And he's like, "Oh yeah, hey, come back here to my room." And I'm like, "Okay." Well, he takes me into his office in the basement, and it's like he opens up the door, and it was the coolest fucking room I'd ever seen in my life. Like scuba tanks and knives and all kinds of fucking badass stuff, and like books everywhere. And I'm like, "Man, who's this guy?" And he's like, "Hey, let me see that. Here's a book." And it was a history of special forces from like 1950 to whatever, 1983. And I was like, okay, I read it, and I found out what a Green Beret was that day, or kept it for like a year. At that point, I still wanted to be an officer, and so when I joined with the intention of becoming an officer, but I wasn't cut out for that. Like I was a hothead. And,
Did you go to college before you joined?
I did, yeah. I was in the reserves. The National Guard while I was in college, and I was in what's called the simultaneous membership program. So I was in ROTC and the National Guard. And then I went to selection between my junior and senior year, and everybody else went to advanced camp, which for officers was like where you decided to go branch of service. So I was already picked up by the time I went to my senior year. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. At that point, I still kind of wanted to be an officer. But then once I got into SF, and it was awesome. Like the dudes were like, they're giants. They're fucking incredible human beings, like all around you. You're just trying to live up to some,
mythology.
The mythology. But then the invasion of Iraq, I think that changed my entire outlook on, the military, not in a good way, in a really good way, because you realize that there's a difference between being a really good like garrison Green Beret or a really good garrison soldier, and then there are guys that like war.
Yeah.
Like there's a totally different breed of people out there. And those guys were working for the agency at that time. And my ODA was fantastic. The other 5th group ODA that we were with was fucking awesome. Like all the dudes were great, but there were these agency guys. And it's like dudes are rolling out, fucking slinging a carbine. And these are like crusty, not the guys we were talking about, not like douchebag, like cocktail circuit guys.
Yeah.
These guys were like former special operations guys that had been like on the road. They've been doing the travel and road show for a couple decades, like fucking salty, wearing like blue jeans.
Likely handlebar mustaches.
All of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Handlebar. Every fucking one of them. It's like they issued them. You know, like
I've seen it. It's awesome. Yeah.
this dude walks into our team room and he's like wearing jeans and like, you know, like Merrill shoes and like no plates and rifle or whatever. He's like, hey, I'm going to go over. Do you want to go with me to do this? I'm like, sure. And I'm like grabbing my kit that's got like 12 mags and, you know, 40 frags.
187 pounds of gear.
Yeah. And I'm expecting him to grab his kit on the way out, and he like grabs a magazine off the desk and like slides it into the back pocket of his fucking blue jeans and like gets in the truck and and I was like, oh, so there's another place I can go. I want to be like that guy. And that was kind of where it changed. I was like, I want to go work for the Clowns. And that was like 05. I did a short stint in Baghdad with a bunch of Australian SAS guys for like 6 months. And then I got picked up and rotated over there like early 05. And I didn't leave. I mean, I spent probably I counted it up the other day. I was like at least 290 days a year in either Iraq or Afghanistan from 2003 to 2012.
It's a long road, man.
And then I eventually was that guy with the blue jeans and didn't give a fuck. Like I was like sliding a fucking Glock into my back pocket, like, hey, we're gonna go over here and do this. Come on, youngster, let's go, you know. And
You became the mythology for other youngsters.
yeah, I did. I think maybe, I don't know. They probably looked at me like, that guy's super fucked up. You know, it's gonna take.
Somewhere, someone's on a podcast going, "Well, here's my guy." He freaking walks out, throws a Glock in his back pocket.
Yeah.
Thinking
You
he's
left, and that guy's like, "Hey, none of you emulate that behavior."
Yeah. Hey, so that guy, like, don't follow that guy.
Yeah.
I remember I was in Mosul, I don't know, 08 or 09 or something like that, and I was like, I took my pistol out, and I was taking a couple Joes with me. And I took my pistol out and threw it down. I was like, hey, hand me a couple frags. I'm gonna actually get a reload here. So I took all my fucking 9mm and just threw it in a box, and I was like, but I grabbed 3 more frags. And they're like, so you're not taking a pistol? I'm like, no, we're going if I need to transition, it's going to be into something that's going to go really big. Boom. It's going to have to be closer. And so I'm like dumping my pistol and just grabbing frags. And they were like, oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to transition to frag. Secondary frag.
Yeah, if your secondary is a frag, it's getting spicy.
Well, that's what I was like. Pistol ain't going to do me any good here, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to need something with a little bit more oomph.
What do you think, Dudley? You want to go find a recruiter's office?
probably be a little old. I've got one arm.
I'm 10 feet tall.
My hips blown out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I would make it right now.
Your hips
I'd
blown
try.
out?
I think it's because my shoulder's blown out.
Really?
That I'm like, I think I'm just. This is guarding so much that I think it's twisting me.
Compensatory stuff?
Yeah. It's nothing. I mean, everyone deals with it. The one thing you said a little while back that I really appreciated was just how you reacted to when you had visual of your mistakes. I think a lot of people like dodge that or want to make excuses at that point. And I tell people the same thing all the time. I'm like, you have a camera, you have a video camera. Self-diagnosis is, for me, it was the only true way to change. Like, people could coach me a million times, but if I wasn't willing to address the obvious, then it doesn't change. You're just continually seeking placebos. So, for those of you out there who are, listening to Andy and Evan thinking, that's a field that you want to go into, if you can't do that, you're going to suffer. Coming from me as a coach or someone who, tries to alter people's, I guess, success in a precision field, if you can't do those things, you're just continually going to slide. I mean, you just continually slide, and there'll be days where it works, but then there's going to be days where it could be catastrophic.
Right.
And especially in your guys' field, it's, it's not like you blow a chance, you took a shot at an animal and you blew it. Like, you're talking about, having a team guy next to you die because you do something stupid. Like, anytime I do that, even now, even with me working for several people, I guess whether you call it as an ambassador or whatever it is, I always ask the people, hey, can you give me a review? Can you treat me like you would an employee? Like, when you do your annual reviews, can you just give me a call and just say, hey man, this is what you're doing. We really like it. Here's some stuff we'd like you to work on, because I want to know that I'm doing the right thing. And if I'm not willing to like take feedback and then, process it positively, then I don't think you're ever progressing as, certainly as a worker or as an athlete or as even as a person. Same thing's true with your family. Like, you have to be able to take that criticism or that feedback, and then, how do I work on it? And if you just keep saying,
Well, I think that's got to be partly humility too, right? Where I never thought I was the best. Like, and I never ever in a million years was like, I'm the best. I would never even say that. Like, it'd never come out of my mind. I'd never
Fortunately, I
think
was
about
very
it.
positive that I wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm like, oh, there's the ranking system. My name's not on the top.
yeah,
Well,
I feel the same. I don't feel like I'm the best at anything in life. Nothing that I do, including archery, there's no way that I can say I'm the best at it, but I do want to work the hardest at it. Like, I'll lose sleep if I know that I just left, if I like took a shortcut.
Right.
And then, especially if I know I took a shortcut but no one saw it.
Right.
Like, no one saw it, but then all of a sudden when it came down to like needing to perform, then when it didn't happen, if I ever knew that, like, I'm like, well, there you go. You made an excuse. You had the opportunity. You swept it under the rug, and then it freaking came back to bite you. And maybe no one else even knows, but for me to know, I would just lose sleep for, I can still think of the few times where I've done that, and it still just haunts me. And because of that, I'm like, I can't do that. I either have to tell people, no, here's the deal. And I think the more open you are, I think it helps me perform better, because I'm not creating something that's false. I just feel like if I tell people, listen, can I shoot a bow good? Yes. Have I put in possibly 1 million reps? Me and Andy were talking about this. Possibly 1 million reps. It's probably close.
Right.
But I think there's phenoms out there, but I also think some of those phenoms, some of them, if they don't have that same work ethic, the windows are short. But there's still phenoms in moments to where it's like, I was never that good, but with what I was dealt, I made 100% out of what I was dealt.
Right.
And I'm content with it. And I think that's why, I think if I put up a false pretense, you'll just continually chase this thing that's like not real. It's not there, and I think a lot of people self-destruct. Well, especially now in the social media world, you see some of these guys are like, man, this is a self-destructive route.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be able to do what they're showing, so to speak. I don't know.
Guys are getting kicked out of buds now because of social media posts.
That doesn't surprise me.
I would assume it's an issue for every
across the board.
So because they were like, look at me holding a picture of the knife, and they're like, yeah, come into the office.
Yeah.
Take a picture of the bell on your way out. Your next post will be of a bell. And
This is a picture of you scooping eggs.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
This is your spoon. There are many like it, but this one is yours.
I'm watching my kids grow up in the social media world that I didn't have to, and I've had this conversation with them, like, because my oldest son's 15 and a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old girl. And, I mean, dude, shit happens on their devices. That we've had, I'll tell you guys offline about it. But, I tell my kids, if you do anything on an electronic device, you have to assume it exists forever.
Yeah.
You might be, I obviously with my oldest, I'm like, listen, you can probably get away with a lot, but if you do dumb stuff, 17, 18, 19, you might be at your first job interview and have somebody slide a piece of paper across, be like, is that your post?
Right.
Yeah, because that's the door. But
Yeah.
you're not getting this job.
Right.
I don't think I could have survived in that environment growing up. Because for me to be an idiot, I had to do it localized to people's faces, not on a pedestal when you can't take it back. I tell my kids, I'm like, you guys are growing up in a tougher world than I did.
Seriously.
And I don't necessarily know how to provide for you the tools to navigate it well.
Well, your brain isn't fully developed, and you're
God.
a fucking teenager. You're gonna do all kinds of dumb shit, and if you're not, I don't. I mean,
It just means you'll do it later in your life,
right?
When you're a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, I was an idiot. I mean, still am an idiot. I'm just like, but I was more of an idiot then.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine like the stuff that I would have been putting on the internet.
Oh my god.
Oh my god,
dude.
Oh my god. It's like.
I mean, imagine going through puberty as a young man and having a device that's a portal to the world and the ability to input into that whatever awesome and deep thought you think you might be having.
Yeah.
For eternity.
For eternity. For it to be backlogged and referenced every time that you want to, like put your foot back in your mouth. Because I think of how many times I've put my foot in my mouth, like just like walking around and talking every day. Like, let alone like a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I would have absolutely never probably been able to do anything in my life. I would have fried my entire personal fucking persona down at 17 years old.
Well, it sets these crazy expectations too. Like from talking to the guys who are still in, they're having a really hard time keeping people past the 5 to 7 year mark because the digital world that they're consuming, the books, the movies, the TV shows, they get in and they're like, what do you mean I have to train for 4 years to go on a deployment where I might not do anything?
Right.
That, like, because they're like, that's not
compute.
exciting. And
Right.
then, so not only does it set this bad expectation, then they leave pissed with a chip on their shoulder, but the right resume bullet, and it's like, uh-oh.
Right.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, there are guys that even before 9/11, right? The guys that they never saw anything like ever. And when I say that, it wasn't their fault, but 20 years of service, all the fucking cool schools that you could even, sew onto a uniform, all the patches you could get.
And just no chance to pressure test it.
No chance to pressure test it. And I can't imagine today with social media, like you're saying, and then because that's a huge reason why they would be joining, because of this image.
It's like a moth to a flame. They're like, oh, I want that persona. And then they get in, they're like, what's going on here?
And I was so disconnected from the younger generation by the time I left, because I was still in the Guard at 2015 when I got out. But I was doing the training, and I was a bunch of other senior NCOs. So we didn't see a lot of the younger guys growing up. But when you did, you're like, not in a bad way. You're like, dude, this is what you guys are. This is what you guys are doing. Like this is what you guys. What is this Snapchat thing or whatever you guys got going on? I'm like, man, you guys are into some weird shit. I was never into, like, I would never spend time on my phone when I was that age. It was like, I was still like doing whatever I could do in the mountains.
Because we didn't have a phone.
About it. Yeah, we didn't have a video device that we could walk around.
I had a rotary telephone when I was Riley's age, attached to the wall.
Yeah.
Trying to think where I was. I was somewhere not too long ago, and Harry saw one on the wall, and then Sharon and I were like, "Yeah, this is how you would use it." You're like, you put your finger in here, and then you roll it over.
He didn't know.
And he's
how
like,
to do it.
I've seen those.
I've seen those.
And I go, well, here's the thing. Imagine like Olivia calls you, and like the phone rings.
Right.
You're not in the room.
But we're watching TV right there, and then you guys got to talk.
Yeah.
And guess what? That phone cord's only going to go as far as you can stretch it from last time, and then you're unspiraling the thing and freaking, so you're kind of around the corner like, hey, baby.
And then the cordless phone came in, and you're like, yeah, that was the money.
Remember that?
Until you couldn't find it.
Exactly.
And you had to hit the page button, but the battery was dead. Yeah. So you find it in the sofa cushion 3 months later.
Yeah. I remember that thing. There's probably one in this house.
Oh, you know there is. There's like
We'll
this
find it.
Yeah,
porno
we'll find
cabin that we're in. There's got to be a multiple rotary phones.
Yeah, we're in this.
We'll find it
We're
for
in
sure.
this very, very unique ranch on the northern side of San Antonio that is.
Hard to describe, actually. The surroundings we're
It
in.
is very, very difficult to describe.
It's almost like we're in a movie set. Like
It
this
is.
could they could
like Boogie Nights.
That would be the appropriate genre.
Right.
yeah, but with animals.
Yeah, with a bunch of dead animals.
Yeah, it's
that
like
were killed in
a
the
hunting
50s.
camp. Like if Boogie Nights collided with, I don't know, some Hugh Hefner wild game trophy room.
Yeah, seriously.
Like I feel like if Hugh Hefner secretly hunted all over the world, this was his place that no one knew about.
That's probably inaccurate. That's an accurate portrayal. Yeah, it's a strange place. It's the I think it's the Guadalupe is what it is because
Yeah.
it's the Guadalupe River down there.
Well, what's crazy? Have you seen? There's like, these are dead. These are all dead grasshoppers in this windowsill.
Yeah.
And next to every dead grasshopper are dead scorpions that tried to get the grasshoppers.
Shut up,
Yeah,
dude.
come
Are
look.
you serious?
There's,
I gotta
Go
see
for it.
this.
there's thousands of scorpions. Look at all these. There's a big one. There's one.
God, you're right.
There's one. There's one. There's one. So.
Holy crap. That's fucking super cool.
It's a classic pairing, really.
Yeah.
Grasshoppers and scorpions.
Yeah, commonly found together.
That's the name of our new coffee roast. Grasshoppers and scorpions.
That would sell, I think.
I
Actually,
think it would.
And you have
GNS.
the model for the mock-up of the label right there too.
So
Oh,
I've got a
yeah.
question.
That'd make a
because-
cool camo.
Yeah, what do you got?
So, Total Archery Challenge. I watched it. You guys shooting it on just via your social media. Like, explain that to me because you guys were shooting one tournament in Utah up in Park City, right?
What was
Where
it?
that at?
Snowbird?
Yeah, it was on Snowbird.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Was that fun? It looked like
Oh,
a
it's
blast.
It's a blast.
It was cool,
it?
man.
It's a blast.
Because you're hiking too, right? Like you're hiking
Downhill.
from station. You're not.
So you take what would that thing be? A tram?
Yeah, you
Top it
take
out.
the tram all the way to the top,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and then you shoot your way all the way down the course. But
Got it.
you kind of switch back it. So sometimes you're going to be you'll shoot shots at 40-degree angle up. Sometimes some of the down shots were crazy.
Oh, I would say almost vertical on the
Yeah.
down shot.
Because I saw one photo that you posted, and it looked like it was straight down.
Yeah, that's that shot we're talking about.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was the first time I did it. My arrow was coming off of my rest. It was that vertical.
Yeah,
That's pretty legit.
yeah, it's common. Though, see, they're really fun courses, but at the world level that I shot for, when I shot with the U.S. team,
Yeah.
and shot field courses, which was my specialty.
Mhm.
I thrived in these very, very technical courses.
Right.
Like in those elements, it's angles, it's
Right.
math, and it's an incredible amount of tuning. Like
Yeah.
the fact of, if your bow's not set properly, if your knock pinch is a little too tight, like you get to an angle that's complete vertical and your arrow lifts off the rest, then you're dicked.
Right.
So
Definitely still send it, but you're just not going to hit
yeah.
Send it.
But then just learning these like microscopic factors in your technique to where once you start changing angles or side hills or down drafts, up drafts, like these are all things I'm sure probably on the same wavelength as everything you go through in sniper school.
Yeah.
When it's one thing to go shoot flat.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that can shoot flat
Mhm.
great. But it's amazing to me how many times I've had students that are just absolute powerhouses, like flat ground, and then I can take that target and just put it like 6 feet high, and then all of a sudden the score's like, and it's just from this slight variation in like a muscle that they've never known to use, or like,
Right.
and then you start to magnify that and go from, well, okay, instead of it being 5 feet above you, now this thing is,
Right.
70 feet above you, but really only 20 feet in front of you, but people are looking at it and they're like, oh, I got to add 10 yards to that because it's higher.
Right.
And it's like, no, dude, you take it off.
You take it
And
off.
they're like, but it's longer. I'm like, yeah, but it's still distance of gravity.
right.
Wait, so it's you take it off? they some people don't get it. And then it makes them so nervous that then their technique derails.
Right.
So then they lose the basis of like what's most important is just execute the shot. Like even if your yardage or your dope is wrong, or even if you get it right, if you don't execute the shot right to begin with, then it doesn't work. So I thrive in those really, really technical courses. And I hadn't done one in a long time, but what I appreciate about them is they're real. Like
Right.
that's for people that get into bow hunting, going to the range and shooting or shooting in your backyard, those don't truly prepare you for when you go on an elk hunt.
Right.
Because you don't know if that elk is all of a sudden going to come over the hill over above you, and he comes charging in. The first time you've got to pull back and shoot with your hand above your head
Right.
up in the air, and you're like, people just don't. You have to do that, and that course is really fun because one, it's not. I think every good archery shoot are ones where there's like no money involved. Like I feel like if people can go and they can shoot and they're not worried about score, but you're just trying to prepare for the technicality of, you're essentially training, for the mission, which is
Yeah.
the hunt. And that's what Total Archery Challenge is preparing all these guys out west. And now it's starting to move. They're adding more. But
Are they?
They sell out so fast.
Yeah, all those guys that go and tackle the Wasatch,
Yeah.
if all they're ever doing is going down to the Easton Center and shooting, even if they're shooting 70, 80, 90 yards out on a perfectly flat, landscaped
Yeah.
frickin' football field, and then they go hit that Wasatch
Mm-hmm.
and they're up there, that's just completely different elements. So it prepares you for that. It was
Like the fifth target, the one he like talking about shooting up.
Yeah.
Just imagine a rock face, super steep boulders everywhere, and then a huge boulder wall. And in front of that boulder wall, it was like a ram.
I
That
think it
is
was a bighorn sheep
damn
or
near the
something.
same color foam target as the rock behind it, and the rock in front of it.
Oh, nice.
And you're literally like up. And so, one person would go up and get the arrows, and I would love, because we shot it 3 times. I'd love going up there because there was thousands of dollars of carbon fiber.
Just like bashed into
Detonated.
the rock. Yeah.
Oh, no, just splintered.
Yeah.
Knocks everywhere. Like, people are just hucking $20 bills up at that thing. And then every morning you'd come down, and there'd be a pile, like as high as this table of arrows. It was unbelievable.
I told Easton, I said, why wouldn't you guys host this every weekend?
Yeah.
I mean, and they're like, what do you mean?
$20 for arrow
I
replacement.
go, dude, look at that pile of air. I said, this course is brought to you by Sitka. I'm like, every course
Yeah.
should be brought to you by Easton. Like,
Yeah.
for the amount of arrows that are on the ground right now.
Well, in watching it, because so back to or reference our previous conversation, I was like, that not only does it look fun to me, but it looks way more realistic. So it's the difference between shooting on the flat range and then going into the house, right? It's like a totally different. You're taking the skill set,
Yeah.
that you're
And even
actually
with
applying.
even with the angles, there'd be you'd only get the front quarter of an animal,
Right.
and there'd be a branch,
Right.
and you're sitting there like, does my arrow cast? Am I going to hit that thing? Do I
Right.
need to stand over here, or it'd be in the shadows, or 2 trees that you got to zip through? It was
Right.
really cool, man.
Yeah, so how do they score that? So when
They didn't have scorecards.
I mean, it
which
was
is what
optional.
I-
you're just
could've.
shooting it, like,
I
just
was
for
happy-
I
fun?
kept score.
Yeah.
Got
just
it.
because
he put on a clinic.
Oh, I would.
I'd be like,
that's-
Dudley, where should I shoot this one? He's like, hold on, tink.
This would be by the targets.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah, you'd hear that. So you'd walk down from that target, and as you're like walking down, you'd hear crack, crack.
So is it just for? I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. Is it an event where there is a winner, or
No,
is it just
no.
hosted for fun.
Seemed to be experiential.
You pay to shoot. You know, it's everyone paying to shoot, and you pay and you go shoot, and you can take a couple days to shoot. You get times issued.
God, why wouldn't they do that every weekend, man? That seems like.
Well, I think the reason the attendance is so high is because it's people have other things they got to do.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
Right.
It's no different than a hunting trip. If everyone knows like, oh, hey, the Total Archery Challenge is this weekend, everybody goes. There's a few tournaments where I tell people, if you were only to pick one, like if you were to pick one, here's what you do. If you were going to pick two, the other one I can think of is in Redding, California. It's a pretty technical course, but it's all animal targets, but it has orange dots on them that are scaled to the same size bullseyes that are in like our field courses. So the animals will have an orange dot on them that's scaled depending. It'll be like a quarter size at 20, and then the Bigfoot target's 101 yards. So that one I think is maybe about a 6-inch circle.
Right.
That's like right there.
But there's money on the line at that one, right?
Yeah. There's money on it, and it's if you hit the dot, it's 11. If you miss the dot, it's a 10 type thing. So it's kind of hit or miss, which there's places for competitive shooting and stuff. I think there's definitely a place for it, but I think if people are just thriving to be better hunters, which part of what I'm doing right now is like my school in Ock, this 12-week kind of progressive course I'm going to walk people through on social media. I just want the average hunter to be able to get comfortable enough shooting to where he or she could go to something like that, and they would immediately see improvements, and they wouldn't, some people are intimidated by that. They see a mountain. There's like this huge mountain. And so if you kind of refine the basics and build confidence there, then you can go into the next step. And I just think overall, as a hunting community, we're making leaps and bounds. Like I think we're very close to being able to push aside the like Bubba Bowhunter, like what Hollywood sees. I saw that movie that Brolin did, like making fun of the deer hunter. Did you see that on Netflix?
No.
Yeah, it's like he's taking his boy out deer hunting, and it was like kind of Hollywood's like perfect spin on like what hunters are, the Bubba bow hunter. And I think right now there's a big movement, like guys are getting in shape.
Yeah.
CrossFit's moving in a way, not necessarily CrossFit.
Functional training.
Yeah, functional training is totally moving into archery, and people are, they're tackling the mountains with backpacks, putting their kids in a pack, doing these huge hikes, toting their bows around, and then they're doing events like this, and just going to like a club for the first time, or just learning, even if you shoot 20 arrows in the backyard, how much it just continues to add up if the technique's good. And I think it's important for the sport that I love, which is archery, and I think it's even more important for bow hunting that, we show that there's like work ethic involved, and we're almost creating a new mold. I mean, it's a I don't know, you can't really call it an athlete, but a lot of the hunters right now are, they're super passionate. I mean, in a way, they're a dedicated athlete to their craft. It's just not, it's not like you can't compare it to a sport, so to speak, but this is, well, I guess it's a lifestyle. Like it's a passionate, dedicated lifestyle that people are walking around in probably way above average shape now.
Yeah. And
they're knowledgeable, and then a lot of people now are really going down the field to fork avenue to where these people for the first time are like, yeah, I was into bow hunting, but like myself, I wanted to be good. I wanted to be ethical at it. So that's why I took up competitive shooting. So then once you do that, well, now you shoot something, and then you have this responsibility of, okay, well, how do I work on it? And then people are getting their hands bloody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it builds better people. I think it builds better character. If you get in there, and it's just like it goes all the way back to like when Andy grew up and his dad had him like carrying bricks. Like you're beating your hands up. You're like
Right.
getting in there. When you just go and buy something and eat it, you're like, whoop-de, oh yeah, hey, this what, I'm not hungry anymore. Launch it. But
Right.
like if I have elk back straps that I know took me, Andy, and Barklow
200 miles.
200 miles
That doesn't
to
go
pack
in the
out.
garbage can
Like
if
if,
you-
if someone's like, should I throw this away? I'm like, if you throw that away, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, the appreciation and connection is substantially different.
Yeah, it's hugely different. Like it means so much more. Like it just means so much more even to your family, right? It's
Yep.
like, I mean, I haven't killed an elk for a couple of years, but the last one, I mean, it was fucking miserable. Like when I say it was fucking miserable, it was like snowing in the mountains of Utah. It was a late hunt. And we were out there for 5 fucking days and like
Grinding
snowshoes,
it.
grinding it the fuck out. Like full moon, and I'm like up to my fucking hips in snow, like trying to get to the top of this ridge so I can get to the top of this ridge by the next morning so I can wake up there. And I'm like getting to the top of this fucking thing was just like suck. I felt like I was in fucking selection again. Like it just sucks, man. After
Similar
like 3
to how
days,
Barklow felt when he got to
I'm
the
like,
top of the mountain.
my fucking feet are 2 bricks. I'm like, I'm gonna lose a toe on this fucking thing. But we did. We killed the next day, and was like, man, and that meat for my family, it meant something. I was like, every one of my appendages were like, dude,
Yeah.
you're gonna eat this, and not only that, you guys are gonna eat this. And kids, if you fucking backtalk, if you don't like it, you're gonna go to your room.
Anytime I pull something out of the freezer and they're frosted, like my kids are sneaky. They'll like eat, and then I hear over the garbage can like, like I'm like, sit down.
Yeah,
Your
sit
plate doesn't
down.
leave the table until I take a look at it, because you can just
Right.
put that meat right back on this plate, and we'll save it for tomorrow. You better not find it in the garbage can, because I still have blisters.
I just things like that bring people together.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I was gonna say you're grinding it out, but you're like, would you go again?
Oh yeah, because it's an epic
it's awesome.
experience. Yeah, it's awesome. It's like while you're doing it, you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, this kind of sucks. Like it kind of sucks when you're doing it, but it's like, I know that it's not going to suck in 45 minutes when I get to the top of this thing.
Yeah.
And I get in my fucking warm little cozy bag, and and I'm going to be fine. The next morning it's fine. And then a year or 2 years from now, when I look back on it, and you're talking to your buddies, and you're calling like, hey man, we need to do another grinder. You ready to go fucking grind it out on the mountain someday?
I remember
like,
the things that suck. I have almost no memory of the things that are easy.
yeah, I agree.
when you're fond of those things, you're
Yeah.
like, fuck man, I love that. Well, not at the time. Like, I could think of a million of those circumstances where you're like, God, this fucking sucks. But then you're like, no, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know what year it was, but one year I didn't shoot my whitetail until the very last day of season. And it was in, I think I had bought a tag over the counter, and it was either Wisconsin or Minnesota. But on the last day, I shot a deer, and it was so cold. Like, it was so cold that the snow like wouldn't do anything. It almost like was like fake, because it was so cold that it was just like white dust just piled high. And I remember when I shot it, I was so happy, and the only reason I was happy is so I could open the cavity up and stuff my hands in it. I just freaking put my hands in there, and I'm just like, because I thought I was going to lose every finger I had, because I mean, I couldn't feel anything. It just, and when I put them in there, it burned so bad forever, and I felt like freaking Han Solo putting Luke in a tauntaun. Freaking. I'm like, yes, I got something. not going to lose both arms.
I could lose my
I just ran
fingers.
up and just laid down. I'm like, oh, okay, yep. I can move them again. And it's like, okay, gut and go, baby. Like, just
Okay.
gut and pull.
And those are the trips, man. Like even today, as I look back, I'm like, man, those are the trips that I like. And those are the like I was out with my buddy, well, Kyle Lamb.
Mhm.
We were out bow fishing, like next to his house, like 15 minutes from his house in Tennessee, and we took the boat down the river, and both of us we'd never gone. I mean, he had done more bow fishing than me for sure, but I was brand new to it, and it was like Asian carp and like super fucking cool. So it's night. We get the lights out, and the fish start like jumping into the boat basically. And you're trying to hit one of these fucking things out of the air, and we're having a blast. We're giggling like Kyle Lamb's this Krusty Sar Major.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
awesome, dude. He's so much fun to hang out with. He's like so much fucking fun to hang out with. Well, we go down the river, and we get into a piece of shallow water, and we fucking break the engine. So the engine, the prop seizes up, and we try to we're working on this fucking river. We're 45 minutes away from the put in. We're like working the shit out of this, and they're like, all right, well, we just have a trolling motor, and
Mosquitoes are sucking the life out of you.
so I get the bow line. I'm walking back up the river with this boat, and Kyle's got the trolling motor pegged out in the back, trying to
One
give me a
knot.
little bit, So we turned like an hour long, fishing trip that we were just gonna like go out and slay some fish with our bows to like somewhat of a suck fest. And we were
9
both
hour
like,
evolution.
Yeah, like we were cruising in. My dad was waiting for us because we were going somewhere else the next day. My dad's like, "What the fuck were you guys doing? Getting back at like midnight?" And, yeah, and I'm like wet all the way up to my chin, and Kyle and I are both like, "Man, that was great. That was awesome."
Yeah.
That's what it was about.
Yeah.
We didn't. What I say is we put 2 fish in the boat, but in all actuality, they put themselves in the boat. Like we didn't shoot 1 fish.
Yeah.
They just landed there.
But it was awesome. It was a
Suicidal
great
fish,
trip.
yeah.
Yeah, we got 2 fish, but we had a fucking great time, man. And it was just one of those trips where you're like, I'll always remember that. If we would have went out and shot a couple of fish, and it would have, went back to the ramp.
Yeah, you just shot a few fish the
Shot
other
a
day.
few fish the other day, but
But
that
none of
was
what
a
you're
cool story.
talking about can live on a device where people are trying to experience and
no.
look for that
Mhm.
motivation. Like, you're
No.
not going to get that doing this with your thumb scrolling.
You're not going to get that with your thumb, and you're not going to get that, like, we weren't using our phones per se. We were using them to take photos of the fish, but, you're not going to get that genuine exchange between people, like, hanging out with a guy like Kyle, who's just an epic person to begin with.
Yep.
And, laughing like you're fucking 5 years old, like giggling. We were giggling. We were so happy because these fish are jumping in the boat, and we're so fucking happy, and we're laughing at each other and making fun of each other. And it's like, this is a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. On that note, Matt
Oh.
just showed up with 2 machine guns. We should probably wrap it up.
Oh,
Yep.
yay!
This is officially done.
It's